Updates. We merged on dev. Taxonomies refactoring terms full weight calculation, including upgrade path. So fixing the order based on full weight calculation only on the dev branch, because this was an issue only on the dev branch due to a change on this branch. On the one-the-next branch, marking a permission requires ownership property obsolete, because apparently, because that's new 5 hours ago, is not used anywhere, so it shouldn't be referenced. Okay. Interesting. So it must be something that was created at the very beginning of Orchard when the implied by was defined, so requires ownership. Yeah, but it's not used, so I don't understand the meaning of require ownership for a permission. Yeah, maybe it was when we didn't have the two sets of permissions like can edit and can edit owned. Yeah, okay. Code styling in admin culture selector. Code styling. Okay, to prevent the full code inside the tag. Localization code styling, again, same issue. And same issue, I assume. Yeah. Code style. And merging 110x into dev, just to forward. Good job. All the changes from 110x to the dev branch. That's good. Then some more change. Audit trail. Fixing notification messages in recycle bin controller. Okay, better error message. Content types, removing punctuation from the permission description. Okay. Okay, no dots in the end. Localization is request admin refactored to admin filter static method. Why? Not okay. Context helpers has been removed, which is not okay. It should be made deprecated. Here, this is not okay. So Gabon, you have a mission to tell Benedek that the last commit is not fine because it's a breaking change on 110x and not a small one. Anyone using that will break, and this should be made obsolete. Everything else is fine, but this one should be made obsolete instead. And even that, I'm not sure it's good on the 110x branch. So maybe we should keep it. Obsolete, I'm not sure it will break anything. We have to check if it's just a warning. Maybe it's just a warning. But that's it for Orchard 1 questions. Orchard call. Jasmin is here, so Jasmin will do lots of demos, right? Lots of demos from Jasmin. So we stopped here. This is a branch from Chantieri. I think this one is the dev branch. So change load order of AntiforgeryToken. This is specifically with the attribute, the size filter for the media, media size filter limit attribute, but before the ignore AntiforgeryToken attribute. So the auto validate AntiforgeryToken attribute needs to come before the ignore AntiforgeryToken attribute, but after the media size filter limit attribute. Otherwise, if this is done before the media size filter limit attribute, the request body is red, but and this one will be useless because the goal of this attribute is to prevent the request if the media is too big compared to the accepted size. So the comment is here to explain why this is this value and why we should be careful by changing or not this value. Documentation to explain how to generate PO file from Antoine has been merged with the tool extract PO. That will analyze all the source code and extract all the strings that are used in the localizer. Chantieri's branches, Jasmine's branches. Which one is that? Content item full text. I love a demo of that. Worst case, we'll talk about it. Added liquid support to Markdown GraphQL query. So the idea is that we have a method or property in GraphQL, for instance called HTML, on Markdown and HTML body, but yeah, we had it only on the Markdown one before. Let me show you. So this was the previous method. You see here HTML, so there is some little refactoring. But the new thing is that this HTML property on a Markdown body was evaluating the Markdown of the content item, so that on the client you can directly have the Markdown evaluated and not the source Markdown. But what was missing is that this Markdown in this body could also have liquid, so it will not interpret the liquid syntax. So James changed the method to first evaluate the liquid and then convert the Markdown, which is good. And he did the same thing for the fields, for the Markdown fields. And same thing for the HTML body part. Does it mean we don't have an HTML field? Maybe it should be done also on the HTML field. We have to check if it's not already done. Probably not done. HTML field. GraphQL fields. Yeah, probably it should be done for the HTML field. If this has been so Markdown field query type object. Maybe it's done differently for these fields. That's weird. I have to check. We'll see. I will add it in my notes. adds liquid razor extension method and Markdown helper parses liquid. That was this one. No, that's not this one. What is that? Add liquid razor extension method and Markdown helper parses liquid. I assume this one are just helpers to evaluate liquid in Razor with documentation. Okay, so liquid filter to evaluate liquid from liquid. Super useful if you manipulate fields or parts that contains liquids related to the same issue as before. And Razor helpers too. So orchard.liquid to HTML async. So that's good. Same thing for Markdown extension that also renders the liquid. So this is related issue, but in different locations. Display the workflow date with current time zone from Corentin Kerman. It was just displaying the workflow creation date, but from the UTC, and now it's using the local clock, so it will use the local time zone of the configure on the server, on the Orchard instance, not the server itself. So that's good. Fixing an hovering issue that in a widgets, if you had too many widgets, when you add a widget, the menu will go under the top banner. So this is fixing the Z index. Then Jasmin added some new fields to be indexed for the lists. So now every item has a ContainedPart property. And now that I'm reading that out loud, maybe it should not be called parent, it should be consistent with the rest of the language we use for lists. So either list or even better container, because that's what it is. I think we use the container part, or do we use the list part? It's called list part. Yeah. So parent is,
yeah, it's the container part. The list part is on the blog, and the blog post has contained part.
Yeah, contain and container. So maybe it should be called container instead of parent. To be consistent. It's called list part. Yep, okay, but that's good. So we can query now content items from their container or parent or list, which we could not do before in the search index. I assume we could do that in SQL. Yeah, I think. Do we have that in SQL? Do we have an index for the container?
I don't remember.
Contain. Oh, okay, it has a container filter, contained part index. So the contained part index contains the list content item. You see, we use list actually. We don't use container. I think we talked about it. We should rename it to container, but it's called list. So list part, list content type, and yeah. So we can do that already in SQL. We can list all the content items which are contained in a specific list. Now it's also in the Lucene index. Good. NullStringLocalizer should not ignore format strings because that got broken, and now we can reuse the formats. Fix localized datepicker issue. Some styling issues that the localized picker was not rendered correctly. Some jQuery UI which was not injected correctly, so that's fixed by Isham. BooleanField styling should match other fields. There was some discrepancy with the field set usage. And actually, I think the actual fix is to remove all the field sets. We have to check that, but there is an issue opened by Seth Cleaver to do that. Maybe we took this one only and then it broke everything else, so we should change it everywhere and not just in one location. Branches from Jasmin here that I would love a demo, and that I'm not sure what's missing on this one, maybe nothing. Async code, caching, and the net30 changes uninteresting. Then dev branch, update list or suggested packages in Visual Studio. I changed that because maybe you have noticed. If you open the dev branch, it will tell you to install some missing components, which are actually not required. So I removed the, because I can do actual development on my machine, and it was asking for missing components. So I'm like, as long as it's asking for something, it's wrong, because I can do everything with Orchard. So I removed all the things that I think should not be there, and kept what I think can be useful and was already on my machine, knowing that I didn't install anything special. So everything should be good here, and we don't see the message to install anything else. And by the way, I found out that we can do the same thing with VS Code. So file issue to create, I think, file for VS Code to install necessary components when using the source code. So the idea is that same thing as this change here. When you open Orchard Core in VS Code, it will ask you or suggest you some extensions that you will need to build or to develop on Orchard Core. For example, OmniSharp to build it, and Razor extensions, things like this. Okay. To that, this is the branch 430. Then Peter Davis fixed some typos, mostly white spaces. He doesn't like when we put the semicolon at the next line. I don't understand why. I like it. Casing, small things that don't change anything, but might be annoying sometimes. And this one is not ordered correctly. It's just a test, fixing a test because it was not awaited, which is wrong. In this case, don't use async await because there is nothing to wait. You can just return directly the task here. That should have been the only change. Well, return a task, not use async, not use await, return the result from that. That's even better. Add sort on multiple fields for Lucene Queries. Jasmin fixed. Well, improved Elasticsearch DSL to support multiple fields for sorting. Good job. And now that you completely understand how the Elasticsearch DSL works, there are many other things you can do. Correct? I hope
yes,
you
yes.
agree with me.
Yeah. I think we need to at least implement all the standard things that are in Elasticsearch, but I'm trying to test the ones that we have already, and I found some issues here and there. I'm probably going to fix them this week.
First one being sorting by integers.
Yeah, all the integers and numeric values seems to have issues.
Yeah, I think there is an issue. We explained how it was done wrong. I think we are not using the correct type of thing to store. Yeah, you will find it, I'm sure. Jean fixed some typos and grammatical issues on the documentation, as usual. Thank you. I think he also wants to define a limit for the line size, because otherwise it's hard to manage. And then big change, Peter Davis, an issue that we agreed with is that there is a Orchard Core application CMS target already that you can point to. So the NuGet project, NuGet package. So if you reference the CMS NuGet package, the CMS will just run, and all the dependent NuGet packages will be downloaded. His issue was that it's also linking all the themes that we have, and he doesn't want them to be available, and there is no way to remove them. So we created a new package called cms.core that just contains the modules and only the admin theme. This way you can just reference your own theme and not the other ones. That will make your deployments smaller, and also won't show all the themes that are available and even disabled, just your theme and the admin one. So the change is simple. He created a new targets file, and what's good here is that he's reusing from the CMS the new target file he created, so there is no duplication. We just have one file to change to add a CMS module in the packages. You see, these ones are removed and replaced by a link to the core targets file. So cms.core is a new package that won't contain any themes. CMS contains all the themes that we have in the solution. cms.core just contains the admin theme. Okay? That's it for the changes. Jasmin, can you do a demo of the full text?
Yeah, okay. I will need to use my actual website because I merged a lot of things. Yeah, I'm working on this right now, and I merge everything on my website. So
okay. So Jasmin found some issues. I don't know when we talked about it. Did we Skype? Maybe we Skyped. Did we Skype?
Yes, last week, because I was trying to find a way to be able to search for all the string values that we could have.
And I think you mentioned that with the token field, and you say no, it doesn't work or whatever, and I'm like, it's an Orchard 1 feature.
Yes.
And it's actually not an Orchard 1 feature. It's just an unimplemented feature in Orchard Core.
Yeah, because you said that you wanted to add something to be able to have custom indexes by using the token field that it has when you're checking the token.
Yeah, but you will
option.
show us in your website, and I will explain what it is and how it should work.
Should I share my screen?
Yeah, if you can. Yeah, and we'll go in the settings, and people will understand what we are talking about, because nobody has ever checked that or wondered what it was, because it doesn't work.
Sorry for the French, but
that's fine for me.
Okay. if I go on content item, content type that I created here, and I added this option here, which is adding a full text liquid editor. What I'm doing here is that because, for example, if I have a content picker field for the categories or the brand of my farm machinery, then I want to be able to search for the actual string values of this instead of the ID that it stores currently in Lucene. So what I need to do is to find the display text value of, for example, an advertiser or a brand or a type. So I want to be able to search for these values. So instead of using every field and setting a different index, I decided to do a single field in Lucene, which is called full text. We use Content.ContentItem.FullText to access this field, and it's a field that is only analyzed, not stored in Lucene. So what it's going to do is going to tokenize every string, every word or things that it finds in that field. An example here that I use. Do you want to add something first, or?
Yes. Can you go in the field settings?
Yeah.
Because that's how we arrive to this feature. So I want to explain the issue and then how it was solved. So this is a field setting, okay? And you can see that. So it's what type of field is that? Category.
Yeah, it's a content picker field.
Content picker, okay. So yeah. Here you can see so go down just to show the analysis and everything. Include this in element, this field in the index. There is also a stored, analyzed, sanitized in English, and tokenized. So the stored is when you want the value of the field to be stored with the Lucene index. By default, it's not stored. You can search for something, but you can't retrieve the original value. Analyzed is when you want the content of the field to be split into different words, such that you can search by word and not as a whole. Like if you have a text field with a sentence inside, like the fox is gray, you want to search for fox and gray, not for is. So this is part of the analyze step. It will remove every stop word and also simplify every word so that you can find the root of the word. Like depends and depending and depend will all be converted to depend. So when you search for something, you will always search for depend. And if you search for depending, internally it will search for depend also. That's part of the analysis. So when you check that, if you don't do that, you will be able to search for the full term. The fox is gray. Then there are two other options. It's called here asynib. In English, it's sanitized and tokenized. So sanitized is when you want to remove any HTML from a field. So if your field is HTML field or contains custom text, you can call sanitize and it will remove the tokens so they don't appear in the search. Otherwise you will look for IMG or field set and it will return the HTML. So you don't want that. So it will remove every HTML before analyzing it. And the final one, tokenized, is when you want to convert the value of the field with some custom liquid filters or logic. So here this field accepts liquid. So you take the content of the field and you can convert it, like you can even sanitize it from a liquid filter, or you can remove some words, do some computation, access some other properties from this one, and this is the result of this filter that will actually be used in the Lucene index, stored and or analyzed. Okay. The issue being that when Jasmin talked about this tokenized feature, it was like, it doesn't work. I'm like, we don't have it in Orchard Core. We had it in Orchard 1 tokenized, but in Orchard 1 tokens were what we call liquid in Orchard Core, which is to be able to change, to filter the data to convert it. So this one, the goal was really to change the content of the field before storing it in Lucene. And apparently, I didn't implement it. So I created the two options, but I didn't implement either of the features behind these two options. So you can click on sanitize or tokenize. It doesn't work. It's not used. And it should be used, so we need to fix it. And you wanted to use tokenize because you really wanted, instead of having indexed the ID of the picked item, you really wanted to index the text of the picked item. Because when it's super useful to store the ID of a picked item in the Lucene index, because then you can search a document that contains or that links to another item. You will do a query with the ID, so that's super useful. And in this case, you will store it, and you will also be able to query it by ID. But that's not what Jasper wanted to do. What he wanted to do was to be able to find with a search, a common full text search or free text search, to find a product, for instance, that was linked to some other product. So if you type the text of the linked item, you will still find this one. So to do that, you will have to use a token that will fetch the item behind the ID, but also in the Lucene query to search for, to add a constraint on all the fields that will contain some text. And that's super not easy to do. So the idea he had was to create a new field that will contain all the text that you would love, that you would like to use to search a content item by free text or full text search. So it's not a field search or faceted search or field search, I would say, but a full text search. And that's super useful because when we have the default search controller, that's what we want to do. In Orchard 1, we had that. We had a way to define the default fields to search in when we were using the search controller. But now in Orchard Core, the idea is that there will be for each content item a full text property in the search index that will be used for the full text search controller. By default, it will contain the display text of the content item. So now the search controller will search the full text index, which will contain the display text by default. But if you want to customize what's included in the full text field, so what is looked for when you do a full text search, Jasmine created a new option in the content types. This is what he just showed. So if you go back on your type settings, that's this. So that's a new option in the type settings that lets you define the full text using a liquid template. And here it just says, whenever I want to find this content item, I want to search for all the content of these fields. And it's creating a new line so that the analysis phase of the text will take it as a different word. And then it in the end contains all the words that are interesting to find this content item, including every related other items that will have their properties or descriptions, titles, including in this one. I don't really understand why you include the year or the price, because, well, I'm not sure it will work. Like if you search for 2019, yeah, that might work. You will find all the equipments that are built in 2019. You see, that's the idea. So he's including all the things you want to be able to find this item from. Yeah. And then this is using liquid, so you can do anything. You can do database queries, you can do relationships navigation, a transformation of the content. And this liquid is evaluated when the content item is indexed. So when the content item is modified and then needs to be indexed again, then this liquid template will be evaluated. So there will be extra database queries during indexation, but that's it. And you can even add some static text. For instance, it's super useful because to add some static text, because you might want to optimize the search index by saying it's like keywords and description. You know that when someone searches for a specific term, you want this item to show up. So you might want to add some text there that will match a specific search query from users, because you know that it's always requested and people don't find obviously the correct content item they want. So here you will push up some score for your indexing on this content item. And so this technique was super useful because it was super easy to implement. We already had the power to index a content item automatically, and it's a new field called full text that we use in the content search handler that you can also use in your own queries. And why we did that is also because it allows us to provide other ways to provide a full text. So the idea being the next thing to do is to use JavaScript also, because you might want to return custom data or fields from JavaScript. It's different. It's not full text actually that we'll do. Why did I say we should use JavaScript for full text? It's not good for full text. It's good for the fields.
Yeah, the way I see this is that you could add more indexes, more fields.
Yeah.
And decide what you want.
I see, but with the same technique. Yeah, because this one is using the content item index handler, which is called every time a content item is indexed. And what we want to do also is to be able to provide some JavaScript to return custom index fields. So if you add some JavaScript, so okay, go on, write some JavaScript in the template, and the JavaScript convention could be to return an object with each property being a new field. So like if you want the field name foo, you will have a foo property, and you can also explain what the options like store, analyze, and you can put the content in it. So you could even describe custom fields for the index of this content item that you want to query on. So instead of having to go in every field and configure that you want it indexed or not, you could have some logic here that will do the indexing. And that could be even dynamic. Like you could say, you could have contextually some fields that are stored or analyzed, and that might be easier and more powerful than having the UI to configure the fields. So that's something that we can do also with the same technique. It's not the same goal as the full text, but being able to configure how it's indexed by JavaScript might be useful. And here is just an object that you return like this, but you can also run any JavaScript code that you want inside.
Yeah, like a var something.
Yeah.
Equals.
Otherwise, it will just be JSON. But here, let's use the power of JavaScript and also return an object which looks like JSON, but it's an object, a JavaScript object. That's the idea.
Yep.
And you can do database queries or HTTP requests, anything that will be allowed during the indexing phase to enrich the index. It can be super useful, super powerful. Just another way to provide indices if. Yeah.
Here, if I'm testing quick, I created something that uses this full text index.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm using nested bool queries here because if you add a must here, it's going to do for each. It's going to do a and here between each of them, and here between each of them is going to do a or. So it's doing and this and this and this, but inside this it's going to do a or, which is quite useful for doing complex queries on content items or fields.
Okay, so you can boost.
Yeah, I can boost also. Here I'm boosting the values, so I want to have my motor equipments first, so I'm boosting it
in the search results. That's what you
in the search results, and
the
sort here the sort though will override the boost. So,
why?
Normally I should have a condition on top of that, because normally if I want to sort those content items with a boost, by default my query should not have any sort. So I should have something like if on top of that, which I didn't do yet, but we'll do.
So you don't need a sort. But why do you have a condition on the full text field? Because it's not mandatory?
Yeah, and normally, when you do a match like this, and you put full text equals string empty, then it's going to try to find everything that has a string empty in the full text, which will return nothing, and I don't want to. And normally, I'm checking if the full text parameter is passed, and if there's something also in this parameter, because I could do something like size text string empty like that.
Okay, that's bad. Okay, I see.
And it's going to return me still some content items, because I don't really need to search for a string empty. The goal is to search for something.
Maybe we could use the same syntax as GraphQL for a query to ensure that the parameters are of the correct type and required or not before evaluating the query, for sanity/security, so that we could say, okay, this query accepts these and these and these parameters, and full text is mandatory, or full text can't be empty, things like this. This way you will not have to do the if. You are sure that when you reach the query, there will be a full text and it's not empty. And that your from is the number and your size is the number, things like this. That will be super useful. Otherwise, you have to do the validation in the query, and then that's painful. And also, if we supported variables in the Elasticsearch language here, then we wouldn't have to use the liquid. We could just use at, or yeah, something to think about. I'm adding that to my notes.
You remove this to see that it works. Here, boost 6. If I'm putting a 7 here, maybe I don't have any classified add. Oh, it's because of this. Yeah, classified add comes first. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do in those things.
Yep.
Because not everything works perfectly, but so far I found fixes pretty quick. It's just things that are missing here and there, but it works pretty well.
Okay, and you made them as you made it as a named query, and you're using full Lucene because you have full text search. Trying to think if you could have done it differently, or if it's the best way or the only way.
You mean that the parameter should always be there because we always have full text. So the parameter here would not be necessary, and even this would not be necessary, but could be happened from server-side code. But you need to pass a full text parameter here from the query, from the post or the get query that you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And you use it on the server side, like from a view, or is it?
Yes, it's used there. Right now, my test is there. This is what it's returning, and if I'm doing, for example, option full text example,
there's a controller.
Value. Yeah, there's a controller that takes these options and convert them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Creates a Lucene query on the server, gets the result, loads the content item, and renders them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is why I'm not really concerned, because I can parse what I have here.
Okay. Yeah, and you could validate it on the controller instead of the logic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is why I'm trying to mostly here, if I'm doing changes, to keep the queries as if it was coming from Elasticsearch. But adding some liquid conditions here is kind of hacky.
What is the from property?
From is a paging. From 0 to 9, 9 is the size of the number of items that you want, and from is starting from where.
And this is handled in Elasticsearch? In Elasticsearch DSL?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think. Yeah.
And I assume I implemented it, but I completely forgot.
I need to check, but yeah, maybe it's not.
Probably I made it because I made the DSL, so okay. But it's standard, okay. I would have hoped that we could have said something like after, if we order by a field, like after this field instead of from the number, but I have to check if it's doable.
After this field, I'm not sure
if you sort by ID or by something like display text, then it's better to give me the results which are after this result instead of counting them in terms of perf.
yeah, to return something
from a cursor instead of from a page number.
Yeah, yeah. Right now I'm doing another query which adds. I'm doing twice, two different queries to evaluate if have items in the next page.
To get to know if there is another item in the next page, what you need to do instead of that is size +1, and then you count the results you got. You still display the size on the front end, but you know that there is another page because you got one more element than what you asked. So you don't need two queries. You just ask for size +1, and then you know if there is a second page if the result is more than the size.
That would be easier.
Technique. Okay, good, awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
So we still need to merge that, but yeah, I think we can merge it and then wait for another issue to implement the tokenizer and sanitize things, which are independent.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we'll talk about this.
Okay, and then there is your other PR, which is indexing in database, which also has been reviewed and will be super useful to do queries on fields. Super necessary.
But this thing is like because I was using the index just by adding this that removes the use for me to use the SQL the SQL
I see.
indexes.
Yeah, but it can still be useful to be able to query a content item by a field in SQL than in Lucene, so you don't need to install Lucene too.
Yeah, SQL is still more reliable than Lucene because you can wait for indexes to be indexed.
Also, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you. Is there any question? Last topic. Milestones. I updated the milestones. We'll see that during next triage. But milestones, there are more milestones now. We still have the RC, but now the RC milestone is ready for the RC because I updated the date. It used to be September, now it's September 23rd. We have a 1.0 milestone that I put for late October. A 1.1, which means next major release, and 1.0x, which means some bug we need to fix that's not blocking 1.0, but we can fix it before a major release. Okay. Backlog meaning good idea. We'll see when we do that, but it's not prioritized or triaged to a specific milestone. And if something has been done in backlog, like 6% complete, it's wrong. It should be not assigned to backlog anymore. It should be assigned to a different release or no release, meaning the issue is not valid. So that's wrong. So what we'll do for triaging is, yes, I already moved some things for 1.0. Yes, so what I did, we used to have some priorities, P0, P1, P2 for labels, and everything that has been labeled P0, P1, P2 has been assigned to the RC milestone now. Okay, because that was the goal at first, because it means we need to ship that. We'll do a smaller triage, a more fine triage, because we might move some of these to 1.0. And the 1.0.1s, which are currently on 1.0.1, might probably go to 1.1 or 1.0x. We'll see, we can move them to 1.0x by default. And the 1.0 should be all the work that is currently in RC. Okay, between the two things. So what I would suggest is to take anything that is labeled with P0, meaning we already need to fix that, or to ensure it's not an issue. So everything which is P0 should be solved before anything else. Let me see. I didn't check actually how many we have. 3 P0, 2 easy, and then P1s and P2s, because these are the things that we'll need to ship for RC and 1.0. And then between RC and 1.0 we'll check what we do, but this should, for RC, this should be features and the fixes, and 1.0 this should just be bug fixes, no feature. So we'll see how it goes. And worst case, the reminders will go on 1.0x or 1.1. So that's the new logic. I also updated the roadmap with that changes. So RC September 2009. That's weird, I didn't change that. I didn't put the date. Okay. September 2019, what has been done? Content localization, right to left admin theme, resources CDN. I can't remember, we had two different CDNs, I can't remember which setting. Oh no, we have the resources CDN and the what? I think we have two settings for CDN, I can't remember. GitHub authentication, Facebook applications, something we should have for 1.0 localization natural fields. We need to do that, localization packages. We already have almost ready the PR for media CDN support, and we might want to merge sitemaps and SEO PRs, and this one obviously will be merged before the RC. And then 1.0, we'll see what is postponed to 1.0. I don't think new features, but at least bug fixes, and we still have that in the pipeline for future releases. Okay? So please adopt a P0 bug or P1 bug. That would be awesome. At least closing the issue if you can't repro the issue. That would be great. Some things will be postponed because they are not really, they are just questions or don't have to be RC or 1.0. We'll see. Some questions? No questions? Then thanks everyone for joining, and see you on Thursday for the triage or next Tuesday for next meeting. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.